The House has resumed. The House is considering the third reading of the Injury Prevention, Rehabilitation and Compensation Amendment Bill. And is some member seeking the call?
Speaker.
Honourable Pansy Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to take a call on the debate of the Accident Compensation Act. How wonderful it is to have a piece of legislation that people can remember the name and say it as it is. Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to start off by saying the last speaker of the opposition was Honourable David Parker. Nothing distinguished more between that speaker and where National stands with accident compensation. Honourable David Parker apparently took the side of Graham Burton. He is standing on the side of Graham Burton. But this side of the House, the government, we are so proud of our ACC Minister, Honourable Nick Smith, who introduced legislation to remove lump sum income compensation and non-essential rehabilitation for criminals. Mr. Speaker, this side of the House, we are very proud of our ACC Minister, Honourable Nick Smith, standing on the side of law-abiding citizens getting access to ACC. And unlike Honourable David Parker, he's standing on the side of Graham Burton. But Mr. Speaker, the reason why we are here today passing this legislation is because the 9 long years of incompetent governance and financial monitoring of ACC by the last Labour government. Let me illustrate this by facts. In the year 2000, the then Honourable Michael Cullen came to the House and said the previous Labour cabinet in the year 2000 has decided to set a levy for ACC in the year 2001 and 2 at 31 cents to make the scheme fully funded by 2014. And Honourable Michael Cullen said, well, setting the levy at 31 for the residual liabilities at 31 cents would have made it fully funded by 2014. So if he set it at 35 cents, surely it will make the scheme fully funded 2 or 3 years earlier. So, Mr. Speaker, as an accountant, and most of the members in this House would probably get it by now that according to Honourable Michael Cullen, the ACC scheme should have been fully funded by next year, 2011. But here we are in this House today trying to pass a legislation which Labour say they support. So they should. We are actually pushing the fully funded day from 2014 to 2019. So, Mr. Speaker, after 9 long years of the Labour don't care, simply extend the scheme and the lack of due diligence monitoring of the ACC financial performance, in this House, the fully funded scheme has to be extended by another 5 years. Should have, the original day was 2014. And Honourable Michael Cullen says should have been fully funded by 2011. So we don't need to hear any more those lecturing, those speeches from the opposition benches. I'm looking forward to the previous Minister for ACC from the Labour government, Honourable Ruth Dyson and Honourable Marion Street, to see whether they would actually take a call to explain to people why is it once we used to have a world-class ACC scheme And after 9 long years of the incompetent governance and incompetent financial monitoring of those two ministers, it's been reduced to have to come to this House, extending the fully funded date from 2014 to 2019, and the levy is going up. Is going through the sky. So, Mr. Speaker, we're looking forward to see how those two can explain why after 9 long years we have to suffer and see ACC first incur a loss 2.4 billion and then 4.7 billion, the largest loss ever incurred by any government corporation. Mr. Speaker, they have something that I'm not sure they should be proud of. So we don't need to hear any lecturing from them because it's after the 9 long years of their governance of ACC that we have to sit in urgency today in this House to pass the legislation. First is to extend the fully funded timetable from 2014 to 2019 and to reverse in the last dying days of the last Labour government, they pushed forward all these extensions without fully considering how those extensions were going to be funded. And we were fortunate that we have a minister in Honourable Nick Smith who took it up, taking a responsible position, taking the hard decision to make sure that accident compensation can continue to be sustainable in a long time. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe the debate of this House and the rationale for this legislation is plain for everybody to see. May I just remind the Labour opposition, national government introduced accident compensation scheme into the country. We are the one have every pride and every interest to keep it sustained. We don't need the 9 long years of incompetent Labour government to put the scheme at risk. So, Mr. Speaker, I have pleasure taking a call and in supporting this piece of legislation to once again restore ACC back to a sustainable scheme.